Hello guys, welcome to Technotrends. In today's video, we are going to see exception handling in Java, and along with that, what are the mechanisms to handle the exceptions, and we are going to see the first type of handling mechanism called a try and catch block to handle the exceptions. Okay, so let us move on to our discussion. Right, so exception handling. So these are the topics we are going to learn in this video session, okay, video series. Okay, we are going to have today we are going to learn the introduction fundamentals of exception handling and the exception hierarchy, representing the exceptions, checked versus unchecked exceptions, and exception handling in Java using 5 ways. And today we are going to learn one of the 5 ways, try and catch block. Okay, so what is an exception? First of all, okay, let me go for one example. Okay, so yeah, here Java my class. So this is going to be called as the error. Look, so could not find or load main class of my class. So this is called as the error, and this is one of the type we know already. Okay, we have seen so many programming languages, C language, C++, and Java. We know what is an error, but in Java, we are being introduced with one new type of runtime error called exception. Let us see what is runtime of exception. Okay, so public class my class. Okay, so I'm going to save this one. So new folder, YouTube, here my class.java. Right, main method. In main method, I'm going to have string name is equal to args of 0. That means I'm going to read in the value from the arguments, the command line arguments, and later right. So this is my program. Okay, now I have stored it in E drive. Okay, in which tanya.java /cd the YouTube java c my class.java. Okay, now I got my Java file here, so there is no error. Okay, and now I'm going to execute this one, java c, and look, this is going to be called as the exception. Okay, so what is meant by exception? So what is actually we are looking for? We are reading the value from the arguments of 0. Okay, so but we haven't given any arguments over here, so it is out of bounds exception because there is no index to read in, but we have given index 0. So this is going to be called as the exception. So it can be the exception need to be handled by the users, the developers, first of all. Okay, so let me have now try. Okay, so sorry. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to give my name there. So welcome Mr. Chwaitu over there. Like this, the exceptions is going to be shown. Okay, so now we are going to look. We have seen the 3 types of the errors: the syntax errors, runtime errors, and logic errors. Okay, and the syntax errors arise because of the rules of the language have not been followed. They are detected by the compiler. Okay, if I am going to forget to have this one, Okay, there is no syntax, correct syntax here, because I have forgotten to terminate the line by semicolon. Let me show you what is going to be happening there. This is going to be called as the error expected. Okay, so these are the syntax errors which are going to be arised due to the rules are not followed. Okay, and next, runtime errors occur when while the program is running if the environment detects an operation that is impossible to carry out. For example, if I'm going to fetch the value from the array which is of length 5, but I am trying to retrieve the value at the 6th position, that is not possible to carry out. Okay, so such type of errors can be called as the runtime errors. And the logic errors occur when a program doesn't perform the way it was intended to. Okay, so the logical errors are nothing but the errors which are going to be raised when I wanted to perform the sum of the two numbers, but it has been performed by production of the two numbers, because instead of having plus operator over there, I have kept a multiplication operator. So then we are going to find out the logic errors. Okay, so the fundamentals of the exception handling. An exception is an abnormal condition that arises in a code sequence at runtime which leads to the unexpected termination of the program. Right. So a Java exception is an object that describes an exceptional condition that has occurred in a piece of code. We are learning the exception handling in Java. So the Java exception is an object, okay, which is going to describe the condition which is exceptional that occurs in a piece of code. And when an exceptional condition arises, an object representing that exception is created and thrown in the method that caused the error. Okay, so when something happened which can be accepted, okay, so then we are going to create an object for that exception, and we need to throw that one to catch that error. An exception can be caught to handle it or pass it on. So we can handle that, or we can move on, but not by ignoring that exception. Exceptions can be generated by the Java runtime system, or they can be manually generated by your code. Exception can be generated by the Java runtime system. Look here, the exception, it has been generated by the Java runtime system. We have executed and there is no argument of 0, so it has thrown an exception. Okay, so by the Java runtime system, or you can directly throw your exception by using your code. The exception handling, performing action in response to the exception. Okay, examples: we can exit the program, or we need to deal with the exception and continue, printing error message, requesting new data, or retry action. Okay, so there are two ways to perform the handle the exceptions. Okay, the first way is exiting the program directly. Normally we need condition, we can directly getting out of that, and we need to modify or rectify the code, and we need to again execute that one. And the second way is deal with the exception and continue. That can be done in three ways. We can print the error message to the user in an understandable way, and the second one is requesting the new data, and third one is retrying the action until and unless an exception is not going to be raised. Okay, so the exception hierarchy is, the exception is the subclass of the throwable class. Okay, and the throwable class is the subclass of the object, and the exceptions can be runtime exceptions. Okay, and the exception is a class which is a superclass for all the classes, and this exception class is the checked exceptions that must be caught or declared in a program. And the errors and the runtime exceptions are unchecked exceptions which are serious in manner that a typical program should not handle them. Like null pointer exception, or mm, division by 0 divided by 0 exception, and so on, so on, so on. Right. So representing the exceptions, we can have the class hierarchy for the exception like this. So this is the object is the superclass for all the exceptions, and the throwable is the subclass for our exceptions, and subclass of object class, and throwable is the superclass for exception as well as errors. And in the exceptions, we have two kinds of the exceptions. They are checked exceptions and unchecked exceptions. The checked exceptions are nothing but class not found exception, clone not supported exception, IO exception, AWT exception, and so on, so on, so on. These four are these exceptions which are checked can be handled by the user in a easiest manner, and we can ignore them. Okay, but that means the checked exceptions are nothing but before executing we can easily find out that there may be chance of getting these exceptions. Okay, so the runtime exceptions are the serious one. Okay, we need to consider them very seriously and we need to handle them very carefully. The runtime exceptions may be arithmetic exceptions, null pointer exceptions, index out of bounds exceptions, and no such element exception. Okay, so let me show you this example here over here. So this is the checked exception. This is the checked exception because it can be this is also a checked exception because an error is going to be checked before execution time, runtime, the compile time. In the compile time itself we can find out whether there is a problem with our code. But exception in thread array index out of bounds exception, okay, array index out of bounds exception, this can be find out while compile time, but it can be thrown at the runtime itself. Is that clear? So this is very important thing we need to find out, that checked exceptions and unchecked exceptions, and the checked exceptions are not much serious, but unchecked exceptions are very serious to consider them. Okay, so this is the hierarchy for your classes. And the errors, the linkage errors, virtual machine errors, AWT error, and the errors like could not find our load main class, okay, and so on, so on, so on. Right? So representing the exceptions. System errors are thrown by JVM, Java Virtual Machine, and represented in the error class. And the error class describes the internal system errors, such as system errors are thrown by JVM and represented in the error class. So look, the error class we have seen already over here. Look, error class, look, error class. So these are the system errors thrown by the Java Virtual Machine. And the error class describes internal system errors. Such errors rarely occur. And if one does, there is little you can do beyond notifying the user and trying to terminate the program gracefully. Okay, when a internal system error occurs, you need to handle that and you need to notify the user that an internal system error has occurred and you need to terminate the program very peacefully. Representing exceptions. Exception describes errors caused by your program and external circumstances. These errors can be caught and handled by your program. Such exceptions or runtime exceptions is caused by programming errors such as bad casting, accessing an out-of-bound array, and numeric errors. Checked exceptions versus unchecked exceptions. The checked exceptions, runtime exception and error and their subclasses are known as unchecked exceptions. All other exceptions are known as checked exceptions, meaning that the compiler forces the program to check and deal with the exceptions. That means the checked exceptions are going to be found out by the compiler itself, and they are going to mention you while compile time to deal with such type of checked exceptions. In most cases, unchecked exceptions reflect programming logic errors that are not recoverable. For example, a null pointer exception is thrown if you access an object through a reference variable before an object is assigned to it. Okay, null pointer exception, there is no such object referencing for that one, but we are pointing out, so then the null pointer exception will arise. And an index out of bound exception, as already we have seen, we are going to find access, we are trying to access an element in the array which is not in the length of its. Okay, so unchecked exceptions, these are the logical errors that should be corrected in the program. Unchecked exceptions can be occur in anywhere in the program. To avoid cumbersome over use of try-catch blocks, Java does not mandate you to write code to catch unchecked exceptions. So we can use those by using try-catch blocks, and Java is not mandating you to write the code to catch the unchecked exceptions. Okay, and this is about the introduction of the exception handling in Java, and how you are going to handle the exceptions in Java. Java exception handling is managed by 5 keywords called try, catch, throw, throws, and finally. Let me show you. Try, catch, throw, throws, and finally. The try is a block of code to handle the exceptions, and catch is also a block of code. Okay, and throw is a keyword, and throws is also a keyword, and finally is a block. Okay, what is try? Let me go for try. Okay, so the try is a block which contains the code which may lead to unchecked exceptions. Okay, try is a block of code which may lead to unchecked exceptions. For example, in my program, okay, so this is going to throws an error. If I am not going to provide with an argument while I'm executing that. Is that clear? So this is the code which makes my program to throw an unchecked exception. So I need to keep this in the try block. Okay, and the catch block of the code, it contains the code which is going to handle the unchecked exceptions. This may be printing an error message. Okay, this may be printing an error message. Okay, or this may be retrying for the an exception not to be raised. Okay, or exiting from the program. Okay, we are going to look how the try and catch block can be used. Okay, Right. Program statements to monitor are contained within a try block. If an exception occurs within a try block, it is thrown. The code within catch block catch the exception and handles it. Okay. The program statements to monitor are contained within a try block. That means to monitor is nothing but whenever there is a chance of having the exception. Okay. So the try and catch statements. The scope of a catch clause is restricted to those statements specified by immediately preceding the try statement. Okay, so the try statement should contain a catch statement immediately after the try block. Okay, a catch statement cannot catch an exception thrown by another try statement. If we are going to have two try statements, okay, if we have it in only one catch block, it is not necessary. It is not works. Okay, and the statements that are protected by the try must be surrounded by curly braces, and the catch also. The statements that are protected by the catch must be surrounded by curly braces. We are going to see the syntax of the try and catch block. The try within the curly braces, we are going to have the statements that may throw exceptions. Okay, and followed by preceding by try block, we are going to have a catch block, which is going to have an exception, which is a handler for exceptions. Okay, and the example we have already seen one exception over here. So try block, okay, followed by try block, we should have a catch block. What is the try block we have? What is the exception we got here? We got over here is array index out of bound exception. So array index out of bound exception ex. Okay, system dot out dot println. What we are going to have here? Please mention the name in the command line. Okay, and name is equal to default. Okay, because the name should not be null, kada? Name should not be null. So here I need to, after this, what happened here when an exception has raised, okay, in the third line, okay, it has terminated the execution of the program. It hasn't executed a system.out.println welcome Mr. name. Okay, but when I have mentioned it in a try and a catch block, okay, so no, sorry. Now it will be fine. Okay, so look over here, right? Please mention the name in the command line until welcome to Mr. Default, because the default is the name I have given for in my catch block. Okay, and when I'm going to have my command line, okay, argument, then it is going to display welcome Mr. Chait, because it has not executed the catch block. When there is an exception in the try block, then only it will go for the catch block. Is that clear? So this is the try and a catch block to handle the exceptions. Okay, and now we are going to look at multiple catch statements. If more than one exception can occur or occurred, then we use multiple catch clauses to handle those multiple exceptions. Okay, when an exception is thrown, each catch statement is inspected in order, okay, one by one, and the first one whose type matches that the exception is exception occurred is executed. After one catch statement executes, the others are bypassed, or if there are some other other exceptions, then those statements will be also executed and remaining will be bypassed. Okay, so let us go for an example here. I already have here the same for the name. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to modify this to perform the division of two numbers. Okay, so int a comma b comma c. What I'm going to do is I'm going to read in a from the arguments. Okay, from the arguments. Okay, and b also from the arguments, and I'm going to calculate the a by b. If I have not mentioned any of the command line or two command line arguments, then array index out of bound exception will be raised. And now please mention numbers. Okay, so if there are no numbers, then what I'm going to do, I'm going to make some default numbers to be taken for the a and b, and I'm going to calculate c is equal to a by b over here, and the division is c. Okay, let us go for execution of this one. Java C my class. Okay, there are no errors. Okay, Java my class. I am not forwarding any command line arguments over here, so please mention the numbers in the command line, but the division is with the default values are 2 because 10 by 5 equal to 2, right? So when I'm going to have 22 are my numbers. Okay, 20 is for a and 2 is for b, then the division is 10. Perfect. What happens when I'm going to have 0 over b, right? Again an exception can be thrown. The exception here is arithmetic exception, which is divided by 0 exception. So I need to catch this exception also. For that purpose, catch of, what is that? Arithmetic exception AE. Okay, system.out.println. The message I want to print is the denominator of division should not be 0. Okay, so now C is equal to 0 because there is a division exception has occurred, so I have mentioned the C value as 0. And now check here, 20. Sorry, I haven't compiled this one. Sorry. Now 20, then the denominator of division should not be 0 and the division is 0. Like this I can have multiple catch statements. Okay, the first time what happened is I have two catch statements over here. Okay, Java my class without exceptions. So the exception which has been caught for the first time is the array index out of bound exception. Okay, and the that has been printed some message over here. We have mentioned in the catch block, and it has been taken the default values over there and perform the division and display the output. And when I'm going to have the second type of exception, that has been caught and displayed the error message and displayed according to the output. Okay, so like this we are going to have the multiple catch statements for in my program. So this is about the try and catch block. I hope you have understood well about the exception handling using try and catch blocks. Okay, and thank you very much for watching my video. Please don't forget to like this video and comment on the video if you have liked it or any modifications you want to mention me, you can mention me through except comments. And please subscribe to my channel to get the mm, videos on Java, Android and web application development. Thank you very much guys.